What's that, babe? Your parents are coming over. Want me to clean the stove? But I'm super busy. All right, I'll take care of it. Let's go, noob. You and me in Mario Kart. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over how I made this stovetop cover. It's actually got a ton of different uses. I mean, first of all, can just give you some more countertop space. Instead of having the stovetop, you can use this as some extra countertop space. TV tray, serving tray. We use it for taking snacks to the family room on movie night. Take your wife breakfast in bed day. Whatever. So let's gather up some tools, start cutting some wood. Here are most of the tools that I'll be using for this build. Everything from my Craig pocket hole jig to some corner clamps, pipe clamps, drill, safety equipment, the stencil for the union, pretty much everything. I'm sure there are probably some other things that I've forgotten to lay out here, but this is the majority of the stuff that I'll be using for this build. I got the pieces all cut down to size that I need for my stove. The next step is to take the side pieces in the back and route a groove in for the base. I'm not going to go into specific sizes because, I mean, everyone's stove is different. I built mine so it actually sits in a little recess here on the edge of my stove. I also made it so that it sits 1/8 of an inch above my burners. If you have an electric stove, you might want to build yours a little bit different. Obviously, everyone's dimensions are going to be a little bit different, so I'm not going to go into those specifics. But let's get to routing the groove in the sides and the back to accept the base. Decided to assemble it with pocket hole screws. So I drilled those out before I continued on. At least got that prepped before I continued on with the next steps. I'm not gonna lie, this is the most tedious part of this entire build. The way I'm laying this out, instead of just having the union sit in the corner of the tray, I actually want the stars and the stripes to go up the back and then up the sides. So I had to figure out, dimensionally based on the corner here, where everything's gonna lie. And me being me and perfectionist or whatever, this took forever. I was able to lay out based on this joint, how far up that was, and measure that out on the union. Same back here on this side, and then I measured down for the stripes. And I was even thought I was gonna have to trim some off of this stripe so that this stripe here in the corner would actually equal the 1.5 inches. Well, based on the union that I'm using, the stripes are 1.5 inches, which works out perfect using a 1x2 because they're actually, 1.5 inches wide. So that works out perfect. And so to get all this laid out and correct was a pain in the ass. But now that I got it, I can, and since I'm staining this and not painting it, I can't really mask the joints, or I can't mask the joints, I can't mask the lines because the stain will bleed right under. I've tried it before, it just does not work. The only thing I haven't tried was caulking, and that was because I was afraid I was going to get caulk in the areas where I want stain, and obviously that's not going to work. So what I did on the flag that I made, the wall hanging, I used razor blades as a divider between the union and the red stripe and the union and the white stripes. So what I'm going to end up doing on this is I'm going to just scratch in all the lines with a razor blade, a nice fine line, deep enough that it won't bleed when I stain it, without having to actually leave the razor blades in there like I did on my wall hanging flag. We'll try it and we'll see what happens. Once I got the union laid out exactly where I wanted it, then it was time to start staining the stripes and the blue for the union. Once the stain was dry, I started to assemble the base using wood glue and pocket screws. fully assembled, I could start cutting the stars in the unit. Once I had the stars cut, then I could design the side shape that I wanted and get that cut. Once I got the two side pieces cut, they weren't quite perfect. I mean, I cut it out with a jigsaw, so they weren't, you know, they weren't quite perfect. So I decided to clamp them together and sand them so they'd be exactly the same. Once I had the sides cut to shape, I decided to cut the handles. I used an 1.5" Forstner bit to drill 2 holes that I then connected with a Dremel multi-tool. I was going to use a jigsaw, but I noticed on on the first version of this that I made that it actually, because of the flexibility of the blade, it made a lot more work to finish the handles, to sand them straight, level. So I decided to try the Dremel multi-tool. Also, when you're drilling out your handles with the Forstner bit, make sure you have a piece of scrap wood on the back. Otherwise, the Forstner bit will blow out the back, and it'll splinter. So make sure you have that sacrificial piece on the bottom to drill into to prevent the handles from getting blown out. Once I had everything cut, I rounded off all the edges with a 1/4 round over bit. Once I had everything cut and all the edges rounded over, I decided it was time to sand it. Now, I didn't want to go overboard since it was already stained, and I really wanted the sanding to just kind of smooth it out, knock off some of the rough spots, and really distress the union and the stripes, and just kind of give it a more distressed look. It also kind of helped with some areas where the stain had bled. I tried to prevent it as best I could by using a razor blade to scratch the lines in between the red and the white here on the back and the sides. I still had some bleed over, so the sanding along those edges, along those lines, while distressing the flag, also got rid of a lot of that bleed over, and just it's not nearly as noticeable as it was before. Once everything was sanded smooth, I took a propane torch and lightly burned it just to give it, again, a more distressed, rustic look. Once everything was cleaned up, sanded, and burned, then it was time for final assembly. So here it is, all clamped up. Just gonna need to throw a few tacks in it, a few brads, and then I will be ready to start putting a few coats of shellac on it. Once assembly was done, I think I put on 3 coats of lacquer. I wanted to use something that was non-toxic, food safe, since we'll be getting food on it and we use a lot, obviously, in the kitchen. I wanted it to be as non-toxic as possible, so I just used some lacquer, put a good healthy coat on, then I sanded it with like 180 or 220. I think it was actually, may have even been 240, I think. Something a little bit higher between the coats of lacquer. But 3 coats of lacquer, and there it is. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later.